Before money was printed, it was something tangible. Gold, silver, precious metals, even grains and salt in some cultures. Each unit represented real value. In ancient societies, the economic power of an empire depended on what could be accumulated, stored, and protected. But human history quickly showed that when trust in the real value of a medium of exchange disappears, the consequences can be devastating. No empire, no matter how strong it seemed, escaped this reality. In ancient Rome, the beginning of systemic inflation started almost imperceptibly. For centuries, the empire thrived on an economy based on silver and gold coins, which were minted with precision and strict control. But as the pressures of war and expansion increased, rulers began to dilute the silver in their coins. Each denarius contained less silver than the previous one, though it still theoretically held the same value. At first, ordinary citizens barely noticed. Gradually, however, prices began to rise. Basic goods like bread and wine became more expensive, while wages remained stagnant. Confidence in the currency deteriorated. Merchants started rejecting older coins, and the economy spiraled into inflation. The empire, which seemed unshakable, began feeling the invisible effects of printing false money, accelerating its decline and proving that creating currency without backing is a silent but powerful force. While Rome struggled with increasingly devalued coins, on the other side of the world, China experienced the revolution of paper money. During the Song Dynasty, paper notes began to replace metal as a medium of exchange. The innovation was revolutionary. Merchants could carry large sums of money without the physical risks of metal coins. But with success came danger. Local governments and bankers began printing notes without adequate restraint, fueling inflation. At its peak, the notes lost almost all value, and the local economy collapsed, forcing the emperor to implement drastic reforms. This episode demonstrated for the first time in recorded history what would happen repeatedly over the centuries. Excess money printed without control destroys trust and destabilizes entire societies. Centuries later, Germany would experience one of the most dramatic examples of hyperinflation in modern history. After World War I, the country was drowning in debt imposed by the Treaty of Versailles. The government resorted to printing massive amounts of money to meet obligations and sustain the national economy. Initially, it seemed like a quick solution. Debts could be paid without raising taxes or cutting spending. But soon, prices skyrocketed exponentially. By 1923, a loaf of bread cost billions of marks. Lifetimes of savings vanished overnight. People pushed wheelbarrows full of cash to buy simple necessities. Companies failed, banks collapsed, and trust in the monetary system evaporated. This episode not only destroyed Germany's economy, but also created social tensions that paved the way for political instability and the rise of radical regimes. In the 20th century, cases like Zimbabwe and Venezuela demonstrated that the principles remain the same, regardless of time or political context. In Zimbabwe, the government, facing enormous deficits, began printing money at an uncontrollable rate. Within a few years, inflation reached unimaginable figures, millions of percent per year. Money completely lost its value, supermarket shelves emptied, and the country plunged into economic chaos. Citizens were forced to rely on foreign currencies and bartering. Similarly, Venezuela faced an economic collapse where uncontrolled money printing and strict price controls destroyed public trust in the national currency, creating widespread shortages and mass migration. These examples are not isolated cases. They follow a historical pattern. When governments print too much money in an attempt to solve immediate deficits or debts, they create crises no one expects. Quick fixes become catalysts for economic disaster. The trust in the monetary system is society's most valuable asset. Once lost, it is extremely difficult to regain. Today, even in modern economies such as the United States, the European Union, and Japan, the issue of printing money remains relevant. Economic stimulus policies, quantitative easing, and monetary expansion are powerful tools, but they carry implicit risks. History teaches that excessive manipulation of currency without real backing or strict control can generate financial bubbles, runaway inflation, and systemic crises. The modern public must understand that money is not merely paper. It represents trust, productivity, and social stability. The psychological and social impact of these crises is profound. Ordinary people see their savings vanish. Workers receive wages that lose value daily. Businesses close, and governments face revolts or loss of legitimacy. Every crisis caused by excessive money printing is also a story of affected lives, interrupted dreams, and societies testing their resilience. Thus, throughout history, from Rome to China, from Weimar to Zimbabwe and Venezuela, we learn a fundamental lesson. Money without restraint, created only to solve immediate problems, carries an invisible yet devastating cost. Economic stability depends on the balance between money creation, real production, and public trust. What seems like a quick solution can silently set the stage for collapse. In the end, the story of governments printing too much money is an eternal warning. Real wealth does not come from ink or paper, but from collective trust, productive work, and fiscal responsibility. Ignoring these principles inevitably leads to crises no one expected, yet always leaves deep marks on the course of human history.